always end up apologising when I talk about plants because I'm a real fan of like solidago and dahlias and gladioli. So we have got about 26 different types of dahlias that we started sowing at the end of March, which germinated within 3 days. And I've now got this cactus hybrid mix, which is about 6 feet. It's sort of reminiscent of an African violet, but got these lovely red flowers, and if I can go up, it trails as well. So it trails over the pot.
Yeah,
and
brilliant.
what we're finding as gravel and rubbish drops all in his lap, it sort of roots itself in the gravel.
Hello and welcome to episode 60 of Talking Dirty, and boy oh boy have we lined up something special for the podcast today. Over at East Ruston Old Vicarage, absolutely smothered in patterns, stripes and checks all over the place, we have Alan Edward Herbert Gray, our happy and very handsome horticulturalist.
Well, thank you for that, because over in Cambridge here, looking patterned and pastel, shall I say, we have Thordis Maria Sophia Fredriksson, and you have a very cheery smile on what is a very cheery day after yesterday when we were all, shall I say, swamped.
Yes, it was very rainy yesterday. The sun has returned. I'm in my new floral dungarees. Special occasion, we've got to match the florals of our guest, who is famed for his shirts. This, we've just worked out in our before podcast chat, is a particularly good episode for Mike Clifford to return on. We've matched our episode number with your age. Mike, John Clifford, I think we established on your last appearance on Talking Dirty. Welcome back to the podcast.
My pleasure. Glad to be back.
Do you know, when you came on before, I think you might be the most requested return guest. We had so many people who instantly said, please can we get Mike back? His knowledge, his planty show and tell was something else. Of course, you're someone who just loves to grow unusual plants.
Yeah, the rarer the better. Last night in the dark, I picked out a few of the special ones that I could find to show today.
If you're watching the video, it's almost hard to believe that this set dressing occurred under cover of darkness. If I dress in the dark, it doesn't look that good. We have got such an array of plants to talk about. So I think without further ado, let's just start talking about your plants and your growing season. Yeah. It's been a strange old year. When we were talking to Krieg a couple of episodes back, they were talking about that. How's it been in your garden?
Well, it's strange because I watched that episode and I totally agreed, but my garden's the best it's ever looked at the moment. It's really strange. It was such a late start, but very wet. And a lot of the plants I grow, unlike some of the stuff, they like wet mountains, like, you know, they like that moisture later on. And the heat and the moisture has just, it's gone mad this year. It's really the best it's ever looked. I've really opened up our garden a few weeks ago and it looked spectacular. So I was really pleased with that. But, yeah, it's been a good year for growing. Lost a few things early on in March when we had those late frosts, but in my garden you lose a few bits means I can buy a few more bits because the garden is so small that it really is right. Unless something dies or moves or I get rid of something, I can't really have anything else. So it's always
just creates a vacancy, which is a gift to you, really, because I mean, I know that you've always got something interesting coming on from seed. Can I just ask you, on just over your left shoulder, there looks to be a variegated Echeveria on that little stand. No, your left.
Oh, there. Yes. Oh, it's beautiful. Compton Carousel.
Is that difficult to propagate?
Apparently not. It pups very easily around the outside. And
right.
It's supposed to be very easy to propagate from. I was speaking to that. I bought it at a plant fair at Abbotsbury in June.
Yeah.
And, it's quadrupled in size since I bought it.
Goodness me. The reason I ask is I've just got a new one in my collection. I potted it on Sunday, and I just wondered how quickly it was going to, whether it was going to give pups or whether I was going to have to take off leaves, basically.
No, I think the gentleman said it pups quite readily. He was quite surprised mine hadn't pupped at that size already, and he said it's easier from pups. So I'll probably be inclined to wait till it pups, and then. I
bet just explain, Mike, to people that maybe not realise what we're not talking about dogs is that pups in this case refers to the baby rosettes produced at the bottom of the mother rosette, and Mike's now going to show you exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes. So there's Compton Carousel, and it's already starting to pup.
that's when it produces a new baby Echeveria, which when it gets big enough, you can take that off and root it in very gritty mixture, and there you go with a new plant.
Yeah, it's a beautiful Echeveria, one of my favourites.
Yeah,
I think I noticed on your talking of your succulents, I think I noticed on your Instagram that you had that wonderful one, Mardi Gras, that flew onto my FLOMO list when I visited Dean Crouch's garden down sort of Somerset Devon way, and you have a very nice specimen of that.
Yeah, it's actually branched now. I haven't taken any cuttings off it yet, though. It's always time for me. It's I propagate a lot of plants every year, but it's that'll be propagated next year, and then I'll just pass those pups on to other people. I can only really ever keep one plant of everything. I can't really keep lots of plants. So propagation is my passion as well. So that's the thing I love to do. Propagate it, pass it on. Grow marvelous, amazing plants and pass it on. And I went to RHS Wisley a couple of weeks ago to see a few of the plants that I'd sent up to there 2 years ago. Met with Matthew, and this is one of them. So this is this year's seedling of a Musanga cecropia, a giant tropical tree. And the ones I gave to Wisley were about 3 foot high. They're now about 9 foot high, and they are stunning. It is. I gave them 5. I think they planted at least 4 out in the tropical greenhouse down there, and they look absolutely amazing. But it's lovely to give because it's a tropical tree. It's actually used as cork. So it's a very fast growing tree. It's a substitute for cork. I also found out today that medicinally it's used to treat lepers. So that's handy. Multi-useful tree, but the plant itself is stunning at Wisley. If you get to go there, you'll see them down by the pond, overhanging with these big. It's called an umbrella tree as well. It has these massive umbrella leaves. But it's superb. Yeah, I love to see plants grown to their full potential. So that's what I do. I grow things, grow them to a certain bit, then pass them on.
You did look like you had quite the spree at Wisley.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, there was a giant Lobelia as well that I gave them at the same time, which I've got this one sowed at the same time in my garden. It's about 6 foot tall. It's called Lobelia bambusetii. Theirs is 15 foot tall.
Oh, goodness.
Hopefully it will flower, and it will probably throw up a 3-4 meter flower spike as well. So I'm fingers crossed that there's flowers because it's in the perfect condition. It's enormous. So that was another one. It's lovely to go there and see the plants that you donated that are growing to perfection, grown to perfection by those guys.
Now, people obviously need to go and watch your first appearance on Talking Dirty when we heard a bit more about your garden and your sort of history. But you mentioned it's small. For people who maybe have only now meeting you, just explain the space you're working with, because we've now got a real concept of the size of plants you often tend to grow.
Yeah, so my garden is 60 foot long by 30 foot wide. And within that space, there's a garage. There's 2 8x12 greenhouses. There's an 8 foot octagonal greenhouse, a 4 meter square summer house, a 6x4 shed, a pond, and a patio. And in amongst there is a multitude of rare and unusual plants crammed in. My wife calls it an obsession rather than a garden. No, I can't resist it. I went to Cornwall a few weeks back and came back with a carload, 66 plants I think I had in the car. Some of them I
saw that picture.
Vacancy.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, I was so jealous though. It looked like you had such a great time.
Yeah, well, I actually got the Flomo from last time, which was the Gunnera. I've actually got one of those as well now. So I've got my favourite Gunnera insignis. It's a superb plant. Little red hairs on the top. Doesn't get quite as big as Manicata, so it should be. I've actually got a Manicata by the pond, which is enormous, which I'm actually giving to a tropical nursery. They're having that, so that just makes room for another one. But, I better start talking about some of the plants.
Well, yeah, because you are surrounded. If you're listening to the audio version, at least click on to the video version so you can just see. We'll try and get a photo of you just surrounded by your plants on our social media or something, because it's like you're in the jungle. Where would you like to start with your show and tell, Mike?
I'd like to start, and this is why I went down to Wisley, actually, because last time I was there, I told them I was growing Deppea splendens, which is a golden fuchsia. And I took them down a 3-foot plant for them to grow to collection. But my plant, which I've had for 3 years, is now probably about 7 foot tall and full of flower. So these are the flowers. I was hoping that they would be out today, but they're very slow to open up. But it's absolutely full of flower. And this is quite a rare plant, the Deppea splendens. It's not actually a fuchsia. It's called a golden fuchsia, but it's actually it's actually part of the coffee family. So it grows as a tree. It's from, I've written this down this time because I always forget, southern Mexico. So it's from southern Mexico, and it's absolutely stunning. The leaves are fantastic, but the flowers when they come out, they're just something else. I was hoping it was going to be full of flower for this, but never works like that.
So is that one you've had to cosset over the winter?
Not really. It comes from cool forests, so it's not too bad. It's just a lot of the plants I grow, I can keep them just above freezing. Like my, I'll show you this. This fell off. This is my one of the leaves from my Begonia luxurians. Where's it from? It's from the rainforest. Anyway, it's a rainforest plant. But look at the size of that leaf. It's amazing. And this just sits under my carport here over winter. I don't give it any heat. I take loads of cuttings ready for next year, just in case, but it always comes through. And at the moment, I couldn't bring it in here because it's 9 foot tall. It's absolutely immense. And I've already cut 2 lots of flowers off it this year. So that's one of my faves. It's a beautiful begonia.
And when you say your carport, how much protection is that giving the plants?
Not carport, it's a plant port. So this goes right. It's my plant port. This car is never going in here. It's purely just my plant port. It's covered at the top. I've put some sheeting up at the side to stop the rain coming through. There's a little gap for air. And in the winter, where I walk through past my garage, I just put up a tarpaulin just to keep it reasonably frost-free. It goes down to about, I think it's been down to -1 in there last year, but only for a fleeting couple of nights. So most of the plants survive fine. They're all packed in together here in the winter, and they seem to do fine. They seem to love it.
Mike, the Begonia luxurians comes from the rainforests of Brazil.
Brazil, it was Brazil, right? That's brilliant. Yeah, it's fantastic though. So mine's 9 foot tall this year.
That's amazing. I mean, mine doesn't get as big as that, but I mean, that is amazing. It beggars belief almost.
Yeah, they grow pretty big, and that leaf there is almost 2 foot across. It's I think I measured it the other night when I did a feed, but that's off now. So right, next, another of my favourite plants. I grow 4 different types of giant tree daisies. This is one of them. This is a Montanoa. The leaves are absolutely stunning. I don't think I'll ever get it to flower because it gets too big, but I grow it for the foliage alone, and that's in the border in a pot. I don't plant it out because it's too much to dig up each year. So and that will just sit in an unheated greenhouse at the bottom of the garden over winter. So another fantastic plant.
I'm not so good on the actual proper botanical ways of describing sort of leaf dissection like that. But if you're listening to the audio version and you don't know a tree daisy, it's got such interesting leaves. I mean, it's not like necessarily a Manahawk Grahamii, but it's that kind of finger effect going on. It's so interesting.
Like tetrapanics, sort of fingered leaves. And it's Montanoa bipinnatifida, which I think means divided, like the Solanum bipinnatifida. It's divided leaves. So yeah, great on that. Rare plants. So I was very lucky to be given a very rare plant. It's called the St. Helena ebony. Have you heard of it, Alan?
No, I haven't.
All right, so the St.
It's obviously a tree then, is it?
It's not actually a tree. No, here it is here. So it's got beautiful leaves. It's covered in this brown undumatum. And it was thought to be extinct for over 100 years in St. Helena. And they found a plant hanging to the cliff tops in the 80s. I think it was in the 80s, 1980, I think it was. They found this plant hanging to the cliff top, and they climbed down and took some cuttings off it. And it was this rare ebony. It's actually related to the mallow family. It's not actually related to the same ebony tree as used in commerce. But all the cuttings, all of the plants in cultivation since 1980 came from that one plant that they found hanging to a cliff top. I think they sent cuttings to Kew, to other botanical gardens. It's been shared around by people, and somebody gave me a small cutting of this about 2-3 years ago, and it's now grown into this fantastic plant. And the flower it's only flowered for me once, and I'll send you a photograph of the flower. It is absolutely stunning. It's pure white with little pink stripes running through the middle of the petals. It's beautiful plant, but very rare, and one of my treasured plants.
Yeah, you must have been made up when someone gave you something that rare.
Yeah. I've got rarer in the greenhouse. I put one on the other day on my feed, and I didn't know what it was. It belonged to, I inherited it from a gentleman that sadly passed away a year ago, and it was left in his greenhouse. Nobody wanted it, so I took this little yellow plant, and I had a message from a friend saying, "That's amazing, that is still alive," and it's a Vireya Rhododendron.
Oh yes.
And this one is unnamed, and there are only two in the world in cultivation. One in Sydney Botanical Gardens, one in my greenhouse. So and it flowered, and it's a yellow flower with like a red center. It is stunning, absolutely amazing. So that's probably the rarest plant I have, because it's not even been named yet. So there's a bit of responsibility. I've already had botanical gardens contacting me, people saying, can they have cuttings? When it's a bit bigger, I'll do the cuttings, but I just want to make sure I keep it going for the time being. It likes where it is. Sometimes a plant, it's turned lovely green, it's flowered, it's happy, it's staying there until it gets a bit bigger. I've done this before with really rare plants, and people say, "Oh, can I have a bit?" And you go, "Yeah, I'll cut a bit off." And you cut another bit off, and then the plant dies and you lose it. And I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to do that this time.
We did our Snowdrop special with Val, Bourne and Brian Ellis. There was a similar thing with snowdrops, where obviously the galanthophiles want to share them, but I think Val had learned her lesson by splitting clumps when they weren't quite big enough, because then she just lost it entirely, and she's sort of given them all away.
Yeah, that's right. I had a very rare Salaginella that was given to me, and I did the same with that, and I sent it across the water to a couple of botanical gardens because it was so blue. I've got a blue Salaginella here. I'll actually show that now. So this is one of my. It's not as iridescent as it would be under light, but the one I had was so blue, even in daylight, it was beautiful. This one's Siamensis, and it's just a stunning plant. I grow lots of iridescent plants, and they all sort of sit either in the greenhouse or under lights in my propagator.
An incredibly delicate foliage, that one, if you're listening to the audio version.
It's beautiful, yeah.
I think a lot of people won't be aware that there is such a thing as plants with an iridescence on their leaves or their foliage.
Yeah.
Salaginella obviously is one of those. But I mean, what purpose does it serve? I can only assume. My immediate thoughts would be they're growing in the dark in the understory of a rainforest or something.
Exactly that. That's exactly the reason. And this is Begonia pavonini. Again, it doesn't really look. It grows under the understory of plants. It has red leaves on the back to reflect the light, and the blue iridescent is to collect as much light as it possibly can when it's in those. This also grows in caves, so when it's in the cave, it goes, and at night that is that just shows. It's called a peacock begonia because it's so blue, and that's another rare plant that I grow.
It is the problem with following you, Mike, is that so many times, like the one where you've only got one of two in the world, people like me, we follow it and we think, oh, I'd like that. And then you realise that it's very rare.
Very rare. This is another blue fern. This one you can probably see the blue better. This is Elaphoglossum metallicum, and when it's wet, those leaves turn really blue. And that one just sits in my normal greenhouse down the bottom. But that's another beauty. So while I'm on ferns, I might as well go to this. Absolutely, this is my favourite fern I own, and it's hard to pronounce this one. Neolepisaurus ovatus, and it's Neolepisaurus ovatus variegata. So there is a plain green form, and this is the variegated form, and those leaves are absolutely beautiful. They're my favourite fern I grow. It's everybody that comes in says, "Can I have a cutting?" No, I haven't actually split it yet, and until it fills this pot completely, I'm not going to, because I just love it. It's the most magnificent fern. Slugs.
What name though? Leolepisaurus.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, it's quite rare. It likes a bit of humidity. It sits in with my appendix.
Has it had any spores on the underside of the leaves yet?
No, it hasn't. No, I don't think any of these have produced spore. Oh, yes. Very simple spore. It's not like some of the other ones that they fill the whole leaf full of spore.
Yeah,
it has. Yeah, in fact, I think that one is as well. Oh, yeah, look.
Yeah.
First time I've seen that.
I wonder if you could take a leaf off and lay it on some. Do you think?
Possibly. I do try ferns from spores.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people just take the leaf off, and the stuff that actually comes off is mainly chaff. It's hardly any spore. I use some cartridge paper, like watercolor paper.
Yeah.
Put the fronds on that, let them dry out overnight, and it'll be loads of spore. And people say, "Oh, look at all this spore." That's not spore. That's chaff. And what you do then is you gently tip the paper up, tap the paper, and all the chaff falls off, and you're left with a very fine dust, and it's microscopic dust. That's the spore. And that's what you should sow. So people sow the chaff, and then the chaff rots, and you get mold and mildew and that. So the spore is incredibly fine. Use a very fine brush to brush it all together, and that's what you have to sow. You have to sow it very thinly because each one's a fern. It's
amazing.
It's great fun.
Mike, I think that's a great tip for everybody that grows ferns, because, and I didn't know that, and I think an awful lot of other people won't be aware of the fact that, the difference between the chaff and the spores is that much, a great difference.
Yeah, there is, yes. Things like Cyathea cooperi, which has the orange spores, and people often say, they've got, look at all this spore I've got. That's like a pale orange. You tip it up, there's like a dark leaves on the paper, and that's only the spore. The rest of it's chaff. 90% of it's chaff.
Yeah,
very, very fine. Some people sieve it through like brine shrimp nets, very fine micros to get the spore out. Some of the experts have these very fine meshes, but the paper works just as well. Just tip it up, tap it, and all the stuff comes off. So this was spore grown. This is another fern, and this one will end up going to a botanical garden, because this is Angiopteris avecta, which is one of the largest ferns in the world. It has fronds up to 20 foot long.
Ooh!
It's quite Jurassic. If you look at the base of that, it's very, very Jurassic looking, eaten by dinosaurs. But that will get slightly too big for my garden, I think. It's great fun to have one of the largest ferns in the world in your collection.
And I mean, you say that about dinosaurs, but ferns, I suppose they are just extraordinarily old.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. A lot of them. Say they date right back to the dinosaurs. That one especially. I've got another king. It's called a king fern as well, and I've got another one, a much bigger fern, over in the corner there, which I might show another day. That's another incredibly rare one. It's huge. I don't think you'll see one of those outside a botanical garden as big as the one I've got in my collection. So that's another fantastic one. Anyway, right, on to the next one. So I don't know if you can see through there is a papaya with fruit. This one here.
Is that the one you gave me?
No, it's a relative of the one I gave you. So this one is a cross, and it's called Babico. And Babico is a cross between Carica pubescens, which I sent up to you, Alan, which is the mountain papaya, and a tropical fruiting papaya. And the special thing about this is the fruits are seedless, so you can't go up for seed. So you have to do it by division. So you've literally, I've got 2 plants, and one of them I'm going to top this year, so it's going to sprout so I can make more plants. But this one, it produces fruit every year. Last year's fruit, this year's fruit. I have actually picked one because it is ripening. And the thing about this is, in 1980, these were all sent over to Guernsey, and they had it as a fruit crop, Babco. And it's called the Guernsey Babco. And they even, which I found on the internet, wrote a cookbook on the Guernsey Babco cookbook, which I got this off of eBay for like 20p. It's a great book. It's got loads of recipes in there for ice creams and drinks and mixing with meats. It's a fantastic thing. But these, they used to pick them ripe, and then it takes about 2 weeks for them to ripen up and turn bright yellow before you eat them. But I thought you might like to see. It's rare because you never see it because you can't grow it from seed, so it can only be growing from cuttings. And this one grows between about 5 and 8 foot tall. The tropical version that had the fruit grew 16 to 20 foot tall. So it is quite a dwarf papaya. But they unfortunately they no longer grow it over there.
May I just tell you that the 2 that you sent me, I planted them together in the greenhouse, on the floor of the greenhouse, in a bed. They're more than doubled in size, and one of them has these lovely little nodules coming on the side.
Brilliant.
So I'm thrilled with them, actually. Thank you for those, Mike. It's absolutely fantastic. It causes great interest amongst the visitors to the garden here because nobody knows really what it is.
No. It's brilliant.
While we're doing the thankful portion of the podcast, can I thank you for Microcosmia columbus, because they have been causing quite the stir. Every time I post a photo, I get all these people who are so jealous. The way that the purple buds of that, kind of lilac buds of that Crocosmia contrast with the yellowy orange of the flowers as they emerge. It's the kind of herringbone effect. Someone actually said maybe it's going to inspire a knitting pattern or some like herringbone knitting. I can have my passions interlock.
Yeah, brilliant.
What was its name, Thordis?
It's Columbus. Is it Crocosmifolia columbus?
It is. Crocosmicolia columbus. That's it.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful, beautiful one.
Really.
Somebody actually said to me, one of the Crocosmia experts came on and said, "Oh, Crocosmias don't have leaves that dark. You photoshopped it, and it's not that colour." And I said, "No, it is." I actually bought down in Cornwall a Crocosmia of a really, really dark leaf. just so I can put this one on and say, actually, there is a Crocosmia of a really dark leaf.
Well, they're wonderful. I'm very, very grateful. Before we leave your papaya, I'm interested to know whether you have used any of the recipes out of the cookbook.
No, it's only a friend of mine took the fruits last year, and his daughter ate them and said they were very nice, but I haven't used any of the recipes yet. No, I might well do. But, this brings me on to this beautiful little plant, which is Sarracenia purpurea cross purpurea. And this grows wild in about 2 acres near me. It's not supposed to be, it's not a native plant. They tried to get rid of this. It's one of the plants they actually went to the site and cleared hundreds and hundreds of them. And they sent these plants to the Eden Project for them to put in their bog plant, but there's still a few plants left. This is one of the ones they cleared about 3 years ago, and this stays evergreen and hardy. I think they say hardy to -15. I've been told it's hardy to about -30.
Oh.
And it just does not. It can stay outside all year, and it looks just as good. And anyway, the gentleman that told me about this, because somebody planted these illegally about 20 odd years ago, about 4 or 5 plants in this bog in Wareham, where I live, near where I live, and they multiplied up. And when they flower and seed, the seeds get taken across the bog by the water, and then all these plants just grow everywhere, and there's thousands of them. So my friend said, let's go out there. He comes back from Australia every now and again. And he said, let's go out there, see if we can find any, see if there's any still there. So we went out to this bog, and you're walking across a bog, and it is a bog. And we got halfway across this bog, and you're sort of like hopping onto solid bits and going down to your sort of like halfway up your welly. It wasn't particularly bad. And Stuart, the gentleman, he said, Mike, just be careful. Make sure you tread on the grass, because where there's grass, there's soil. He said, where there's moss, there's... Before he could finish his sentence, I was up to my chest. I just went straight down, had my phone, my wallet, my car keys. And it was like that Vicar of Dibley where she jumps in a puddle. I just, Stuart, help! So I had to go back and drive home with absolutely soggy bottom. But we did find some, which was nice. There was still a few left out in this field, which he was pleased with.
They look like something out of Monsters Inc. or something. They're such curious little creatures.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. I've actually got one of these at work, and the flies go. It catches the flies, so they go in, and the hairs actually go down. And when you put your finger in, the hairs hold your finger in. They're downward facing hairs. The flies fall in, they can't get back out again. They can't climb out, and then the fluid in the bottom dissolves them. So rainwater, sit in rainwater, and great little plant for catching flies. I don't know if the camera will pick up on the fine hairs, but there's these beautiful little fine hairs at the top. And it's stunning. There's two forms. There's a pure green form as well that grows out there.
An amazing plant.
Yeah. It is, yeah. Absolutely amazing. And what else? Yes, one of my favorites. Somebody put on something about salvias. And they said, have you got any different? I think it was Gardener's World. Have you got any different salvias? So I replied to them yesterday with a couple of mine. And this one is just, it's a new one for me this year, sent to me by a friend up in Hull. And it's Boliviana. It's the fuzzy Bolivian sage. And the flowers.
I love these. Look at them.
Oh, they're stunning. And
they look as if they're velvet almost, don't they?
They look like velvet, they look like little hats. When you do a close-up, it looks like a tongue. It looks like the Rolling Stones album cover. That's exactly what that looks like. It's absolutely brilliant. And fuzzy Bolivian sage. So one of my favourite sages that I've grown this year.
Where did you get that one?
It was a small cutting from a friend sent earlier in the year. As was this one. These are cuttings I took last week. This is the arrow leaf sage. The flowers are okay, but the leaves get huge. Now, these are only tip cuttings, but the leaves are just fantastic. And it's reasonably hardy. I've had it outside. It's survived winters and died winters. It just depends on how harsh the winter is and where you plant it in the garden. But the leaves get really big, and it's just a beautiful sage. I don't like the normal. Everyone's got the normal ones, and I just like something a little bit different. So anything different, I'll grow. But and lastly, I've got this little blue amaryllis, which is quite rare. It's Griffinia libaniana from Brazil, and it has little pink. Sometimes it has white spots. Sometimes it has pink spots. This one's got pink spots on the leaf. And I was just chuffed that it flowered. This is the second year it's flowered for me. It's related to the Woolsea, the really rare blue amaryllis. So it's like a dwarf form of that. But again, quite rare. Not many people have it in their collections. So
Mike, I'm sure that I mean, most of the people that are looking at this on the podcast will be absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of fantastic foliage that you have. But I'd just like to ask a question because I think, people new to gardening, I've noticed there's a huge resurgence in the interest in foliage, large foliage plants in particular. Yeah. So for somebody that's starting out and they want to have fantastic leaves, can you recommend 3 plants that could possibly be, I mean, they might be trees, but they might behave like an herbaceous perennial in our country or our conditions. Can you recommend 3 that people could actually try and grow from seed or get their own gardens?
Yeah, and seed is easy. So Paulownia tomatosa, I would say, would be my top one from seed. They take about 3 years for them to get big enough to pollard, and then you cut them down, and then you just get these massive, great big sunflower-like stalks. They go up with leaves that are 10 times bigger than normal. An amazing plant. And I would probably say Fatsia. There are so many different Fatsias. I grow probably about 5 different varieties of Fatsias. I grow one called Mega Fatsia, which has huge leaves. It's an Edward Needleham form, but this one had giant leaves. So it's a Edward Needleham Mega Fatsia. It's not. He just called it that jokingly, and it stuck. So, but the Fatsias are fantastic plants for tropical that tropical look, and probably Tetrapanics, which I know is very popular at the moment, and there are so many different types of species of Tetrapanics, all different. There's the standard Tetrapanics that doesn't have the cut leaf. There's Tetrapanics Rex. There's so many variants of the plant around at the moment. Yeah, fantastic.
What do you think of Manihot Grahamii as a hardy plant outside? Would that work?
Yes, yeah. I've had one in the garden for 5 years, 4 or 5 years. Cut it down each year, take cuttings off of it. It flowers and seeds, but the seeds never really set. You have to have a really long, so they won't set this year. It's too late. And the seeds just go. The seeds need to look like Messina seeds, so they're colourful. The seeds that you get out of the ones that are late flower and just white, and they never germinate. But Manihot Grahamii, I've grown it from seed for many, many years, and I say the plant in my garden was seed grown. Great plant and fantastic foliage. Manihot Grahamii is one of my favourite foliage plants. They look.
What about Cassonias?
Cassonias aren't hardy. I grow probably 7, 8 different varieties of Cassonia. They're nice plants, nice in a big pot. But
did you know that they've got one outside at Wisley?
Have they? Oh yes, it's outside. Yeah, but it's not. It's a small plant, and it's outside, and it's by the house, right by the house. It may well survive 2 or 3 weeks. It's spicata, I think it is. I'm not sure, and it might be paniculata. But yeah, I grow lots, but I grow them in pots.
Right.
And I've tried them outside, and they don't survive even here down in Poole in Dorset. So,
but if somebody's looking at this and they want to grow a Cassonia, can you grow them from seed?
Easy from seed, they're very easy from seed. I grow. The hard part is finding the seed.
Yeah,
Casonia's the Cassonia seed last year was first. I had to get mine from America last year to grow. I grew a couple of new varieties of Cassonia to add to my collection. And trouble is they do get too big, and I will have to either pass them on to Wisley or someone else.
Well, I'm just thinking, you see, my brain works in a kind of perverse way, and I'm thinking that if something is with that you really want to grow it and it shouldn't grow outside, if you grow it and it's until it gets too big to take in, then you put it outside for the summer. And at the end of the summer or end of the autumn, you probably tip your hat to it and say, well, good luck, old friend, thank you very much. I might see you next year, I might not.
yeah, absolutely. I do that with certain plants. I do try plants out in the garden. The thing with me is I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I don't like to see holes in plant. I don't like to see winterized leaves that have really.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Spring. It just, I don't know. It might be the OCD in me. I just don't. I go around and pick off leaves that are holy, and people come around and say, how come your garden's so immaculate? Because when I get home from work, I'll have a pint of beer and I'll walk around and I'll cut off the dead head and cut off the leaves, do a bit of watering for a couple of hours, and make sure the garden looks pristine. And that's what I do. I hate to see that. I've got a Solanum here. I forgot about that. I've got a Solanum quitoense that I grew from. So you said about big leaves from seed. Yep. This is 2 years from seed. Oh, there you go. So this is Solanum quitoense. Lost fruit of the Andes. It's actually flowering. It's got flowers, but it has huge spiny leaves, and they come out purple. You have these beautiful flowers and lovely little orange fruits, which are used for mixing with ice cream, and they make sorbets, and I think there's a drink as well. They make a drink out of it. I think they're orange fruits, but the juice is green, and I think it's called Lulu.
I can actually testify that that one is easy to grow from seed.
Brilliant.
Because I and several of my friends have grown that from seed, and we don't all grow it from seed every year, but the one that does offers the other friends, you know, would you like one? Would you like one? And we always say yes, because it's a spectacular foliage plant.
They are. When the new leaves come out, that purple is intense.
Brilliant.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a couple of them sort of plunge planted around the garden. Plunge plant a lot of my plants as well. So even if they're in pots, I'll just dig a hole, stick the pot in, and then it's easy to lift out. So this will actually be cut down. I've overwintered this one. So this is the first time ever last year. This is 2 years old from seed. But I normally just grow them from seed each year because they get quite resinous. It's not worth overwintering them sometimes.
No, exactly.
Yeah, so in fact, I never overwinter resinous. They all go, the spare ones just get chopped.
Yeah.
And that's another one, of course, to grow from seed if you want the big leaves quickly, though obviously it is poisonous, so just beware of that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
In fact, I was very jealous. I went round a friend's for dinner and she likes gardening, but she doesn't know a huge amount about it. And a friend had given her a couple of these, and I was so jealous. And she said, "Oh, I don't even know what it is."
Oh no, it's a beautiful varieties. I had a guy who hybridized them in America that I was friends with it must have been about 10 years ago, and I think I grew about 30 different hybrids of ricinus back then. Absolutely amazing, the variants in the leaves. My favorite is New Zealand purple because it's just that intense purple color, but it's the only ricinus seed really that needs good bottom heat to get it going in the spring when I grow them.
And if you want to see, if you want to think, was it New Zealand purple that Derry Watson showed us in her garden, Alan? I can't remember, but she had a fabulous one.
It was that, yes, it was.
Yeah, stunning plant. And I like Zanzibarensis as well, because that gets just enormous leaves. That's the biggest leaf variety and the tallest of all the ricinus.
Well, I must say, as somebody who is teetering on the edge of trying to introduce more big leaves into my little garden, you've just given me so much food for thought. My cheeks actually hurt because I've just been grinning at all of your plants.
Can I just ask? Just like to ask Mike one last question, and that is that I think that the manihot that you gave Thordis, I'm going.
Oh, that was Phil at Jurassic Jungle.
Yeah. Oh, was it? Oh, right. I know you had one from somewhere anyway. Now, would you keep that undercover for its first winter, Mike? Because, you know,
it's only little. It's sort of.
I would plant it out in the spring. Yeah, I wouldn't put a new seedling straight out in the garden. Although I've had sort of 2-foot seedlings that overwintered fine. They are quite hardy, but I wouldn't plant anything out this time of year, really.
No.
To plant it, give it a good growing season, but yeah, that size would be fine to plant out next year.
Yeah, Phil will be pleased to know that it's going to go for a winter holiday in Alan's glasshouse.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Phil's a great friend of mine. We share plants and he's a fantastic grower.
The other thing about Phil, fantastic at packaging plants. I've never known anything like it. It turned up beautifully sort of packaged in this tall, slim box. It was one of the most exciting deliveries ever.
Well, I have to say that all growers of exciting new and rare plants are very good packers, because the papyrus that I had from you, not papyrus, papayas that I had from you were absolutely beautifully packed. I mean, it was just, well, they were swaddled.
Absolutely. I wanted them to come in perfect condition.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, well, we're going to have to wrap things up in a moment. We must fit in some FOMO first. FOMO being the flower or plant that gives you FOMO, a fear of missing out. And let's be honest, at Mike's Rare Plants on Twitter or Instagram, you are one of the key creators of the feeling of FOMO in various plants people up and down the country or indeed across the world. And because I have limited growing conditions, what basically happens is I see something, I have FOMO, I double check whether it's hardy and rare, and most of the things I'm probably never going to grow. Your fuzzy Bolivian sage, that gave me a lot of FOMO, sticking its tongue out and looking all fluffy and cuddly. I basically have daily FOMO for Begonia luxurians, which I probably can't overwinter, but boy, oh boy, is that glorious. But you did put up impatiens, is it Pianmaensis? Now that was hardy. I don't know if I'll ever grow it, but that looked interesting.
Yeah. Some of the hardy impatiens are lovely plants. Yeah.
But basically, daily Flomo from you. I've got so many, I don't even know where to start. Where are you at with your Flomo?
Well, I actually found a plant in the loft that I took to work last week, and it'd been up in the loft for 6 years, dead. And I brought it back to life this week, and it's the Rose of Jericho. So it's a ball, and I put it in a source of water, and it's come back to life. It's just starting to green up. So my Flomo isn't actually that one, because that's a false Rose of Jericho, and it's that's another Salaginella. And the one I'm after is the one that's more thorny, which is the true Rose of Jericho, and it's Anastasia herochuntia, which is part of the mustard family. It's from Asia, and it's another one that dries up, and you can keep it for years, and then when it rains or gets wet, it opens up and produces seed and flowers. And it's another one of those ones that I think it's a much nicer looking plant than the normal resurrection plant. So that's my Flomo, is to get one of those.
Extraordinary.
Amazing.
Oh, I love that. What about you, Mr. Gray? What would you like to bring to the Flomo party?
I'd like to bring all of it to the Flomo party, please.
I think we all feel that way.
Such great things. But the reason I did ask Mike about perhaps hardy plants, or at least dying down to ground level with large plants, is because I would like to increase my diversity in plants that actually do that, especially in the exotic garden. And the other thing I'd just like to tell everybody is that we'd had a plant fair here last Saturday, and Ed Brown from Cotswold Garden Flowers came along, and he had this. I thought, well, that's an old poplar tree with brown leaves. And it was exactly that. But if you grow this in your garden and you pollard it on a regular basis, you'll get, I don't know, leaves 3 times as large, and you get these long wands. But the great thing is it's the bronze form, so it's got lovely purple leaves, and it's a different hue. If you're into foliage and you want something slightly different, it's a common old garden brown leaf poplar tree. But if you chop it to the ground every year, people will wonder what the heck it is you've got, and they'll be very envious.
That sounds interesting.
The plant fair was a Flomolicious affair. It was absolutely wonderful, and I happened to be there with my mum's sprig art stall next to Ed Brown, which was a very unfortunate position because I spent the whole day buying things. So I got some very nice things, including some lovely perennial helianthus. And you, Alan, got a fabulous Vitalaca that we've been talking about with Krieg.
Well, yes, I mean, there's a little story to this, because you bought it and then I bought it from you, not at a profit, I might add.
I missed a trick.
But because it's not hardy, and it tends to die in winter normally, I put it in a very sheltered place at the bottom of a south-facing wall in a raised bed. So the next time you come over to East Ruston, you can see and inspect it. But it also is producing lots of side shoots, which I can take cuttings of and hopefully overwinter, so that we'll all have it. And I'll save the seed as well. If the seed ripens, I'll save the seed and do it that way too. So, we could be overrun with them next year. Who knows?
I don't think I'd mind, with those glorious, bright pink stems.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Mike, that must be the fastest hour in history. It's gone so quickly, and I just want more. So will you please come back?
Oh yeah, I've got plenty more. This was just a very small collection. I've got lots more in the garden. We'll have to do it the other way around next time, looking out into the garden, because they're just too big. They would only just fit under here. These ones would only just fit under. So I've got a Sauromatum here that I never got in the picture. That's absolutely. I don't know if I can turn it around. See that?
Oh gosh, yes. Way.
Well, that's a cross between the Indian giant and the normal Sauromatum venusum. That's hybridized in my garden, and it grows as big as Indian giant, but has these beautiful speckled stem, and it just popped up in the garden, and I've potted up a few big tubers, but it's absolutely stunning.
God, you know how to do a grand finale, don't you, Mike?
Yeah, I almost forgot about that one.
Oh, well, I don't even know what to say. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming back. I expect to be inundated with more people demanding an immediate return. So we'll have to get you booked back in at some point in the not too distant future. But for the time being, thank you very much and happy gardening.
Thank you very much.
Happy gardening, everybody. Thanks, Mike. Nice to see you.
Bye.
Come here. What are you up to? Yes.
Hey, Lily.
Yes.
Mike, you've frozen.
Yeah, no, I shut the back door, and the internet hub is by the back door because Darwin's out here.
My hair especially for this, and it's gone really fluffy.
Yeah, I did mine as well. Still lucky.
As you can see.
I can't see you.
I can't see you, Alan.
Where have you gone?
Yeah, I tore my
Aw.
especially.
Did you wax the ends?
I always wax. Yeah.